Evening in Byzantium by Irwin continued. She shook her head sadly. I guess you shouldn't expect anything in advance. It's only one night, Anne, he said. It's bound to get better. You're leaving tomorrow, she said. You didn't tell me. It came up suddenly, he said. Can I come with you? I'm afraid not. I won't ask why, she said. It's only for a day or two, he said uncomfortably. They walked in silence, listening to the lapping of the harbor water against the boats tied up along the quay. Wouldn't it be nice, Anne said, to get on one of these boats and just sail off? What have you got to run away from? Plenty, she said quietly. Do you want to talk about it? When you come back, she said. Women at all ages, he thought, have the knack of making you feel you are deserting them, even when you are only going down to the corner for 10 minutes for a pack of cigarettes. Anne, he said, I have an idea. While I'm gone, why don't you move over to Cap d'Antibes? The swimming's better, and you can use the Murphy's cabana, and I don't need any chaperone, Anne said harshly. I wasn't thinking of chaperones, Craig said, although he realized now that she had used the word that was exactly what had been at the back of his mind. It was just that I thought you'd enjoy it more there. You'd have someone to talk to. I'll find somebody to talk to right here, she said. Anyway, I want to see a lot of movies. It's funny. I love to see movies. I just hate what it does to the people who make them. A car with 2 women in it came up alongside the quay and slowed down. The woman nearest them smiled invitingly. Craig ignored her, and the car moved off. They're prostitutes, Anne said, aren't they? Yes. In the temples of ancient Greece, Anne said, they prostituted themselves to strangers before the altars. The altars have changed since then, Craig said. Don't walk alone at night, Gail had told Anne when they had met on the steps of the hotel. Don't walk with your father either, she should have added. Even whores, he thought angrily, should observe some rules. Have you ever gone with one of them? Anne asked. No, he lied. If I were a man, Anne said, I think I'd be tempted to try. Why? Just once, to see what it was like, she said. Craig remembered a book he had read when he was young, Jürgen by James Branch Cabell. He had read it because it was supposed to be dirty. The hero kept saying, My name is Jürgen, and I will taste any drink once. Poor Cabell, who had been sure of his fame. Tell the rabble my name is Cabell, he had announced from what he had considered his enduring and disdainful eminence. Poor Cabell, dead, discounted, forgotten even before his death, might now find consolation in the fact that a whole generation so many years later was living by his hero's disastrous slogan, was tasting any drink once, trying any drug once, any political position, any man or woman once. Maybe, Anne said with a gesture of her head for the disappearing red lights of the whore's car, maybe it would help define things. What things? Love, maybe? Do you think that needs definition? Of course, Anne said. Don't you? Not really. You're lucky, she said, if you really believe that. Do you think they're having an affair? Who? Craig asked, although he knew whom she meant. Gail and Ian Wadley. Why do you ask? I don't know, she said. The way they behave together, as though there's something between them. No, he said. I don't think so. Actually, he thought, I refuse to think so. She's a cool girl, isn't she, Gail? Anne said. I don't know what people mean by cool anymore, he said. She goes her own way, Anne said. She doesn't depend on anyone. And she's beautiful, and she doesn't make anything of it. Of course, I only met her today, and I may be way off base, but she gives you the feeling that she makes people live up to the way she wants them to be. Do you think she wanted Wadley to end up the night puking his guts out because he behaved like a fool? Probably, Anne said, indirectly. She cares for him, and she wanted him to see for himself what a dead end he'd reached. I think you're giving her more credit than she deserves, he said. Maybe, Anne admitted. Still, I wish I could be like her. Cool, above things, knowing what she wants, and getting it on her own terms. She paused for a moment. Are you having an affair with her? No, he said. Why would you think so? I just asked, Anne said offhandedly. She shivered a little. It's getting cold. I'd like to go back to the hotel and go to bed. I've had a long day. But when they got back to the hotel, she decided it was too early to go to bed and came up to his apartment with him for a nightcap. She also wanted to get a copy of his script, she said. If Gail knocked on the door while Anne was there, Craig thought ironically as he poured the whiskeys and soda, they could have a nice little family get-together. He could start the evening off on the right foot by saying, Gail, Anne has some interesting questions she'd like to ask you. Gail would probably answer them, too, in detail. Anne was staring at the title page of the script when he brought her her drink. Who's Malcolm Hart? She asked. A man I knew during the war, Craig said. He's dead. I thought you said you wrote the script yourself. I did. He was sorry that he had been so careless on the trip back from the airport and had told her he had done the writing himself. Now he would be forced to explain. Then what's another man's name doing on it? I guess you could call it my nom de plume, he said. What do you need a nom de plume for? Business reasons, he said. She made a face. Are you ashamed of it? She tapped the script. I don't know, yet, he said. I don't like it, she said. There's something shady about it. I think you're being a little too fine. He was embarrassed by the turn the conversation had taken. It's in an old and honorable tradition. After all, a pretty good writer by the name of Samuel Clemens signed his books Mark Twain. He saw by the set of her lips that this had not convinced her. I'll tell you the truth, he said. It comes from uncertainty. Put it more bluntly, from fear. I've never written anything before, and I haven't the faintest notion of how good or bad it is. Until I get some opinions on it, I feel safer hiding behind another man's name. You can understand that, can't you? I can understand it, she said, but it still strikes me as wrong. Let me be a judge of what's right and what's wrong, Anne, he said with a firmness he didn't feel. At this stage of his life, he was not prepared to live up to the dictates of his 20-year-old daughter's stainless steel conscience. Okay, Anne said, hurt. If you don't want me to say what I think, I'll shut up. She put the script down on the desk. Anne, darling, he said gently, of course I want you to say what you think. And I want to say what I think. Fair enough? She smiled. You think I'm a brat, don't you? Sometimes. I guess I am, she said. She kissed his cheek. Sometimes. She raised her glass. Cheers. Cheers, he said. She took a long swallow of her whiskey. She said appreciatively. He remembered watching her drink milk before bedtime when she was a little girl. She looked around at the large room. Isn't this awfully expensive? Awfully, he said. Mummy says you're going to wind up a pauper. Mummy is probably right. She says you're wildly extravagant. She should know, he said. She keeps asking me if I take drugs. Anne was obviously waiting for him to ask the same question. I take it for granted, from all I see and hear, he said, that every student in every college in America has smoked pot at one time or another. I imagine that includes you. I imagine it does, Anne said. I also imagine that you're too smart to fool around with anything else. And that takes care of that, he said. And now let's call a moratorium on Mummy, shall we? You know what I was thinking all through dinner looking at you, Anne said. I was thinking what a handsome man you are, with all your hair and not fat and those lines of wear and tear in your face, like a retired gladiator, a little delicate now from old wounds. He laughed. Noble wear and tear, she said quickly, as though you'd learned a lot, and that's why the lines were there. You're the best-looking man I've seen since I came here. You've only been here a few hours, he said, but he couldn't help sounding pleased. Fatuously pleased, he told himself. Give yourself a couple of days. And I wasn't the only one, she said. Every lady in that restaurant looked at you in that certain way ladies have, that little butterball Miss Sorrel, that fabulous French actress, even Sonia Murphy, even Gail McKinnon. I must say I didn't notice it. He was being honest. He had had other problems to think about during and after dinner. "That's one of the great things about you," Anne said earnestly. "You don't notice it. I love coming into a room with you and everybody is looking at you like that and you are not noticing it." "I have a confession to make," she said, sinking back luxuriously in an easy chair. "I never thought I'd grow up enough to be able to talk to you the way I've done today and tonight. Are you glad I came?" For an answer, he went over and leaned down and kissed the top of her hair. She grinned, looking suddenly boyish. "Someday," she said, "you're going to make some girl a good father." The telephone rang. He looked at his watch. It was nearly midnight. He didn't move. The telephone rang again. "Aren't you going to answer it?" Anne asked. "I'll probably be happier if I don't," he said. But he went over and picked up the instrument. It was the concierge. He wanted to know if Miss Craig was with him. There was a call for her from the United States. "It's for you, Anne," he said, "from the United States." He saw Anne's face become sullen. "Do you want to take it here or in the bedroom?" Anne hesitated, then stood up and placed her drink carefully on the table beside her chair. "In the bedroom, please." "Put it on the other phone, please," Craig told the concierge. Anne went into the bedroom, closing the door behind her. A moment later he heard the phone ring there, and then the muffled sound of her voice. Holding his glass, he went to the window, opened it, and stepped out onto the balcony to make sure that he didn't overhear Anne's conversation. The Croisette was still full of people and cars, but it was too cold for anybody to be sitting on the terrace. There was a long swell coming in, and the sea was breaking heavily on the beach, the white of the foam ghostly in the reflected lights of the city. "Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean," he recited to himself, "and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery." What ebbing and flowing and turbidity would Sophocles be reminded of listening to the sea in Cannes tonight? Who was ebbing? Who flowing? Was Sophocles his real name? Or did he, too, use a nom de plume? Oedipus at Colonus by Malcolm Hart, now dead. He wondered if Penelope had also read the Tribune that day, and what she had felt, if she had felt anything at all, when she had come across the name of Edward Brenner, another dead writer. He heard the living room door open and went in from the balcony. Anne's face was still sullen. Without a word, she picked up her drink and finished it with one swig. Maybe, he thought, I'm not the only one in the family who drinks too much. "Anything serious?" he asked. "Not really," she said, but the expression on her face didn't match her words. "It's just a boy I know in school." She poured herself another drink. With very little soda, he noted. "Ah, Christ," she said. "Nobody leaves you alone." "You want to talk about it?" "He thinks he's in love with me. He wants to marry me." She plumped herself down despondently in the easy chair, cradling her drink, her long brown legs stretched out in front of her. "Prepare for visitors," she said. "He said he's coming over. Airfares are ridiculously cheap these days, that's the trouble. Anybody can follow anybody. One of the reasons I asked you to let me come here was to get away from him. You don't mind, do you?" "It's as good a reason as any," Craig said noncommittally. "I thought I was in love with him too," she said, "for a hot month. I liked going to bed with him. Maybe I still like going to bed with him. But marriage, for God's sake." "I know I'm being old-fashioned," Craig said, "but what's so awful about a boy wanting to marry a girl he's in love with?" "Everything. You don't see Gail McKinnon rushing off and getting married to any half-baked jock college boy, do you? You don't see her sitting at home and popping television dinners into the oven, waiting for dear little hubby to come home from the office on the 5:30 commuter's train, do you?" "No, you don't," he said. "I'm going to be my own woman first," Anne said, "like her. And then if I want to get married, my husband'll know what the rules are." "Can't you be your own woman married?" "Not with that stupid jock," she said. "He's not even a good jock. He got a scholarship to play football. He was all-state in high school, or all-idiot, or something like that. And the first week in practice with the varsity team, he tore his knee to bits, and he can't even play football anymore. That's the kind of fellow he is. Maybe I would marry him if he was smart or ambitious, if I thought he was going to amount to something. His father owns a grain and feed business in San Bernardino, and all he wants is to go into the grain and feed business in San Bernardino. San Bernardino, for God's sake. Bury me not on the lone prairie. He says he's not against women working, until they have children, of course. In this day and age, with all the things happening in the world, wars, revolutions, crazy men with hydrogen bombs, blacks being gunned down, women finally standing up and asking to be treated like human beings. I know I sound adolescent and naive, and I don't know what the hell I expect I can do about any of it, but I know I don't want to wind up teaching kids the multiplication table in San Bernardino just because some big California lunk has got a fix on me. I tell you, Daddy, sex is the biggest goddamn trap ever invented, and I'm not having any of it. The worst thing is, when I heard his voice on the telephone saying, "Anne, I can't bear it," I felt as though all my insides were melting into one big, stupid, syrupy lump. Ah, shit. I wouldn't care if he didn't have a penny, if he walked around barefooted, if he only wanted to do something, join a commune and bake organic bread, or run for Congress, or be a nuclear physicist, or an explorer, or anything. I'm not all that freaked out myself, but I'm not all that square either. She stopped, stared at Craig. Am I? Do you think so? No, Craig said, I don't think so. I just don't want to live in the 19th century. Ah, what a day, she said bitterly. He had to come over and sit next to me in the library, limping from his goddamn knee, with long hair and a blonde beard. You can't tell what people are like from the way they look anymore. And now he's coming over here to moon away at me with his big baby blue eyes, flexing his goddamn biceps and walking around the beach looking as though he ought to be on a marble pedestal somewhere in Thrace. What do you think I ought to do, run away? That's up to you, Craig said, isn't it? So that's what had happened to her in the last 6 months. She put her glass down roughly. Some of the drink spilled over on the table. She stood up. Don't be surprised if I'm not here when you get back from wherever you're going, she said. Just leave word where I can reach you, he said. Have you got any pills, she said. I'm all jangled. I'll never get any sleep tonight. Modern father, after having plied his daughter with drink during the evening, and having listened without comment or demur to her description of her carnal relations with a young man she scorned to marry, he went into the bathroom and returned with 2 Secanols to assure her night's rest. When he was 20, he remembered, he had slept undrugged, even under bombing and occasional shell fire. He had also been a virgin. Insomnia began with liberty. Here, he said, handing her the pills. Sleep well. Thanks, Daddy, she said, taking the pills and throwing them into her bag. She picked up a script. Wake me in the morning before you leave, and I'll come down and have breakfast with you. That would be nice, he said. He did not mention the possibility that there might be other company present for the same meal, or that she might expect the waiter to look at her oddly. He took her to the door, kissed her good night, and watched her go down the corridor toward the elevator with her pills and her problems. Even now, he noticed, she was imitating, just a little, Gail McKinnon's way of walking. He didn't feel like sleeping. He fixed himself a fresh drink, looked at it thoughtfully before taking the first sip. Was it possible that he did drink too much, as Anne had said? The censorious young. He picked up a copy of The 3 Horizons and began to read. He read 30 pages. They didn't make much sense to him. I've reread it too often, he thought. It's gone dead on me. He couldn't tell whether he should be ashamed of it or not. At that same moment, perhaps, Walter Klein in his castle and Anne upstairs in her single room were reading the same 30 pages. He was being judged. The thought made him uneasy. He noticed that he had finished his drink as he read. He looked at his watch. It was nearly 1 o'clock. He still wasn't sleepy. He went onto the balcony and looked out. The sea was higher than before, the noise of the waves greater. The traffic on the Croisette had diminished. American voices floated up, women's laughter. Women should be forbidden to laugh outside your window after midnight, he thought, when you are alone. Then he saw Anne coming out from under the porte-cochere. She was wearing her raincoat over the yellow organdy dress. He watched as she crossed the street. 2 or 3 men who were passing by glanced at her, he saw, but kept on walking. Anne went down the steps to the beach. He saw her shadowy form moving close to the water's edge, outlined against the luminous gleam of the breakers. She walked slowly, disappeared into the darkness. He checked an impulse to hurry after her. If she had wanted to be with him, she would have let him know. There was a certain point at which you no longer could hope to protect your child. The young spoke candidly, endlessly, shockingly about themselves to you, but in the long run, you didn't really know any more about them than your father in his time had known about you. He went back into the room, had his hand on the whiskey bottle when the knock came at the door. When he awoke the next morning in the tumbled bed, he was alone. There was a note for him in Gail's handwriting on the desk in the living room. "Am I a better lay than my mother?" she had written. He called her hotel, but the operator said Miss McKinnon had gone out. All those big masculine writers were wrong, Craig thought. It was actually the vagina that was the instrument of revenge. He picked up the phone again and called Anne's room and told her to come down for breakfast. When she came down in her bathrobe, he didn't tell her he had seen her leave the hotel the night before. When the waiter came in with the 2 breakfasts, he looked at Anne the way Craig had known he would look. He didn't tip the man. Chapter 14. On a curve, a Peugeot loaded with children and going 90 miles an hour nearly hit him head-on. He swerved, just avoiding the ditch alongside the road. He drove slowly and carefully after that, wary of all Frenchmen on wheels, and not enjoying the views of the vineyards and olive groves through which the road ran, or the occasional glimpses of the sea off to his left. He was in no hurry to get to Marseille. He had not yet decided what to say to Constance. If he was going to say anything, he wasn't sure that he was a good enough actor to be able to pretend successfully that nothing had happened. He wasn't certain that he wished to pretend that nothing had happened. The night had shaken him. This time there had been no coquetry or refusal. Wordlessly in the dark, with the sound of the sea outside the window, Gail had accepted him, gently, gravely. Her hands were soft, her mouth sweet, her touch delicate and slow. He had forgotten the skin of young girls. He had expected avidity, or if not that, brusqueness or even resentment. Instead, she had been, well, he thought the best word he could find was welcoming, profoundly welcoming. At the back of his mind, a thought flickered at the edge of consciousness. This is better than anything I've had in my whole life. He recognized the danger, but sometime during the night he had said, "I love you." He had felt tears on her cheek. And then in the morning, there had been that harsh joke, the note on the desk. Who the hell could her mother have been? As he approached Marseille, he drove even more slowly. When he got to the hotel, there was a note from Constance. She would be back sometime after 5. She had reserved a room adjoining hers for him. She loved him. And there was a message at the concierge's desk. Mr. Klein had called and would like him to call back. He followed the clerk up to his room. The door between his room and Constance's was standing open. When the clerk had left and the porter had put down his bag, he went into Constance's room. Her familiar comb and brush were on the bureau, and a linen dress that he recognized was hanging outside a closet door to shake out the wrinkles. The rooms themselves were dark and hot and heavily furnished. There was a great deal of noise coming in from the street, even though the windows were closed. He went back into his own room and sat on the bed, his hand on the telephone. When he picked it up, he started to give the number of Gail's hotel to the operator, then corrected himself and asked for Klein's number. Klein answered himself. He was a man who was never more than 5 feet from a telephone. "How's the great man?" Klein asked, And what is he doing in Marseille? It's the heroin center of the world, Craig said. Haven't you heard? Listen, Jesse, Klein said. Hold on a minute. I have to go to another phone. There are a lot of people in here with me, and I'll hold, Craig said. There were always a lot of people in there with Klein. A moment later, he heard the click as Klein picked up the other phone. Now we can talk, Klein said. You're coming back to Cannes, aren't you? Yes. When? In a couple of days or so. You'll get back before everybody breaks camp, won't you? If necessary, Craig said. I think it'll be useful, Klein said. Look, I read that heart script you sent me. I like it. I think I may be able to put something together right here, this week. Are you interested? It all depends. It all depends on what? On what you mean by putting something together. I think I may have a lead, Klein said, with a director. I won't tell you his name because he hasn't said yes or no yet, but he's read it, and nobody's said a word so far about money. And there's many a slip, etc. You understand? Yes, Craig said, I understand. What I mean, Klein said, is that I think it'd be worth your while to get back here as soon as possible. But there are no promises. You understand that too, don't you? Yes. Another thing, Klein went on. I think the script needs work. I never heard of a script that didn't, Craig said. If Shakespeare showed up with the manuscript of Hamlet, the first man he showed it to would say, I think this script needs work. I don't know who this fellow Hart is, but he's no Shakespeare, Klein said. And I have the feeling he's shot his load on this draft. I mean, I think whatever director agrees to do it would want to bring in another writer for a second version. Before I talk to the director, I have to know what you think about that. Craig hesitated. Maybe, he thought, this was the moment to announce that there was nobody named Malcolm Hart. But he said, I'd have to talk it over with whoever was finally going to do it, see what his ideas are. Fair enough, Klein said. One more thing. Do you want me to tell Murphy I'm handling this, or will you? He's bound to hear, and soon. I'll tell him, Craig said. Good, Klein said. It's going to be a rough 10 minutes. Let me worry about it. Okay, worry. Can I reach you at the Marseille number if something comes up? If I move, Craig said, I'll let you know. I don't know what's so great about Marseille, for Christ's sake, Klein said. We're having a ball here. I bet. Keep your fingers crossed, kid, Klein said, and hung up. Craig looked at the telephone. He who lives by the telephone, he thought irrelevantly, dies by the telephone. He supposed he should have been elated by Klein's reaction to the script. Not wildly elated, but cautiously, quietly elated. Even if nothing ever came of it in the end, here was some proof that he hadn't been wasting his time entirely. He picked up the phone again and asked for the Carlton. Anne must have read the script by now, and it might help to know what she thought of it. Also, good father, having left her with the problem of the young man arriving from California, perhaps he could offer some useful advice, if she asked him for any. While he was waiting for the operator to reach the Carlton, he shaved and took a shower. He should look and smell his best for Constance. It was the least he could do. He had to climb out of the shower when he heard the telephone ring. As he stood dripping, waiting for the operator at the Carlton to connect him with Anne's room, he looked at his wet, high-arched footprints on the worn carpet. At least I'm not flat-footed, he thought. A man could be vain about the most idiotic things. There was no answer from Anne's room. If she needed advice, she was getting it elsewhere, from Gail most likely. He wondered what Gail would have to say to his daughter, how much she would tell her. What if she told her everything? And what exactly was everything? Cross that bridge when you come to it. He went back into the bathroom and stood under the cold water, rinsing the soap off. He dried himself and dressed quickly. He needed a drink, he told himself. He hadn't brought a bottle along, and he would have to go to the bar. There was a certain amount of cowardice involved there, he acknowledged to himself. He didn't want to greet Constance in their rooms, where she might expect him to get into bed with her immediately. Immediately was not for today. The bar was dark red, blood-colored. There were two small Japanese men in identical dark suits looking over a thick bundle of mimeographed sheets of paper and speaking Japanese earnestly, in voices just above a whisper. Were they planning to bomb the harbor of Marseille? He wondered how he could have hated small, neat, polite men like that as much as he had when he was a young man. Banzai. He was on his second scotch when Constance came into the bar. Red was not her color. He rose and kissed her. Her hair was a little damp from the heat. He should not have noticed. "You look beautiful," he said. Everything else could wait. "Welcome, welcome," she said. The word had an echo he would have preferred not to hear. "I need a Tom Collins," she said. "He knows how to make them." She gestured toward the barman. She had been there before. With whom? Had there been tears on her cheek recently? He ordered the Tom Collins and another scotch for himself. "How many does that make?" she asked lightly. "Only 3, he said. Anne was not the only one who was concerned about his drinking. Next month he would go on the wagon. Just wine. "I knew I would find you in the bar," she said. "I didn't even bother to ask the concierge." "I have no mystery left for you," he said. "It's a bad sign." "You have plenty of mystery," she said. "Never fear." They were uneasy with each other. She picked up her bag and put it down, her fingers fiddling with the clasp. "What are you doing in Marseille, anyway?" he asked. Klein had asked him the same question. Was it possible that all the million inhabitants of the city asked each other every morning, "What are you doing in Marseille?" "One of my darling youths is in trouble," she said. Verbally, she always capitalized youth. "The police picked him up in the Vieux Port with 2 pounds of hash in his rucksack. I pulled some wires, and they told me in Paris that if I came down and flung my charms around liberally, I might be able to get the idiot out of the French pokey sometime before the end of the century. I've been flinging my charms around liberally for the whole afternoon. The youth's father has also promised to cable an interesting selection of money for the support of the French narcotic squad from St. Louis. We'll see. I'll have to hang around at least 2 days. God, I need a drink, and God, I'm glad to see you." She reached out and took his hand, squeezed it. She had strong fingers, smooth palms. Delicately made, she was a strong, smooth woman, damp hair and all. Bold, intelligent, inquisitive features, direct, humorous green eyes, dark now in the red light of the bar. Much sought after by men. He had been told that by friends, also by her, active in the service. She had a bad temper, a sunny smile, was easily hurt, quick to hurt in return. Always something for a man to think about. Take nothing for granted. How many men had she abandoned? He would have to ask some day. Not in Marseille. They touched glasses before they drank. "I needed that," she said after the first long draft. "Now tell me everything." "I can't," he said. "We are surrounded by Japanese spies." Postpone with a joke. She grinned. "Glad you came?" she asked. "All my life," he said, "I have dreamt of meeting a girl in Marseille. Now that I've done it, let's go someplace else. If you've got to hang around a day or 2 anyway, there's no sense in staying here. If the money comes from St. Louis, they can call you." "I suppose so," she said doubtfully. "This hotel is deaf," he said, "and there's so much noise outside we won't sleep all night." "I didn't know you'd come here to sleep," she said. "You know what I mean." She smiled. "Where can we go?" "No can. Forget can." "There's a place I've heard of," he said, "in a village called Merag. Somebody told me about it. It's a converted chateau on a hill. We can get there in under 2 hours." "Have you ever been there with anybody else?" "No," he said truthfully. "On to Merag," she said. They packed hurriedly. No time for love. It would be dark before they got to Merag as it was. He was afraid the telephone would ring before they got out of the room. The telephone didn't ring. The clerk at the cashier's desk was sullen but resigned. He was used to guests leaving his hotel suddenly. "You understand," he said in French. "I am obliged to charge you for the full night." "I understand," Craig said. He paid both bills. The least he could do for an American youth in the hands of the French police. The traffic was bad as they started out, and Craig had to pay attention to the driving, and there was no chance for talking until they were outside the city limits, going north in the direction of Aix-en-Provence. He sorted out the subjects in his head as they drove: fidelity, parenthood, career, his wife, his daughter, Klein, Gail McKinnon, the mother of Gail McKinnon, not necessarily in that order. Constance sat beside him, her short hair blowing in the wind of their passage, a small, contented smile on her lips, the tips of her fingers on his leg. "I love going on trips with you," she said. They had been to the Loire Valley together, to Normandy, and to London. Small, delightful voyages, simpler than this one. He wondered if he was glad or sorry she had refused to come to Cannes with him. "Did you talk to David Teichmann?" "Yes," Craig said. "Isn't he a nice man?" "Very." He didn't tell her what he had heard about the old man. Keep death out of the conversation on the road from Marseille. "I said I'd be in touch. His plans are vague." He hurried past the subject of David Teichmann. "Actually, somebody else may be interested in the script. I'll probably know when I get back to Cannes." He was preparing for departure. Constance took her fingers away from his leg. "I see," she said. "What else? How's your daughter?" "It would take all night to tell you," he said. "She's after me to quit the movie business altogether. She says it's cruel and capricious and the people are awful." "Did she convince you?" "Not quite, although I more or less agree with her. It is cruel and capricious, and most of the people are awful. Only it's no worse and probably better than most other businesses. You get more bootlicking and lying in one day in any army, for example, than in a year in every studio in Hollywood combined. And there's more throat-cutting and double-dealing in politics, say, or selling frozen foods, than there ever possibly could be on a movie set. And the end product, no matter how bad it is, can't do any more harm than generals and senators and TV dinners." "I take it you told her you'd hang in there." "More or less, if they let me." "Was she happy about it?" "At her age, I think she believes the idea of being happy is a betrayal of her generation." Constance laughed ruefully. "God, I have it all ahead of me with my kids." "So you do," he said. "Another thing my daughter told me, she's been to see her mother." He could feel Constance tense slightly beside him. "Her mother told her she'd been to see you." "Oh, dear," Constance said. "You don't have a bottle stashed away in the car somewhere, do you?" "No." "Should we stop somewhere for a drink?" "I'd rather not," he said. Constance moved a little toward her side of the car. "I hadn't planned to tell you," she said. "Why not?" "I thought it might disturb you." "It does," he said. "She's an attractive woman," Constance said, "your wife." "She did a very unattractive thing." "I suppose you could say that. The youths in the office got an earful." Constance shrugged. "I don't know what I would do if I'd been married to a man for over 20 years and he left me for another woman." "I didn't leave her for another woman," Craig said. "I left her for her." "It's hard for a woman to believe that," Constance said. "When you reach her age, in a situation like that, you're not likely to be completely reasonable. She wants you back, and she'll do everything she can to get you back." "She's not going to get me back." "Did she insult you?" "Naturally." "Can't we talk about something else? This is holiday time." "My lawyer says she's threatening to name you in the suit for divorce," Craig said. "In the end, she probably won't, because I'll pay her off not to do it. But I thought you'd better know." "Don't pay her off on my account," Constance said. "My reputation will survive." He chuckled dryly. "Isn't it dreary to think of a poor little French detective standing outside my window all night while we tossed and turned in the steamy raptures of middle-aged passion?" Her tone was mocking and bitter. His wife, Craig realized, had accomplished at least part of her mission in the scene with Constance. "You're not middle-aged," he said. "I don't feel middle-aged," she said. "Tonight." They were passing a road sign. "Aix-en-Provence," she said. "Minstrels at the court singing to the sound of lutes. Tournaments of love." "I'll tell you if anything happens," he said. "Do," she said. "Keep me posted." Unreasonably, he felt she was blaming him. No, reasonably. After all, it was his wife. He had had more than 20 years to train her to behave politely to his mistresses. A car came in from a side road, and he had to jam on the brakes. Constance put out her hand to brace herself against the glove compartment. "Would you like me to drive?" she said. "You've been driving all day, and you must be tired." "I'm not tired," he said shortly. He stepped on the accelerator, although he knew he was driving too fast. For a while in the car, it was not holiday time. The hotel was a chateau on top of a wooded hill, and it was warm enough to eat outdoors by the light of candles on a flagstone terrace overlooking the valley. The food was very good, and they had 2 bottles of wine and finished off the meal with champagne. It was the kind of place and the kind of dinner that made you understand why, for some part of your life, it was imperative to live in France. After dinner, they wandered down the road, through the little forest, through patches of moonlight, into the village, and had coffee in a tiny cafe where the proprietor had the week's football scores chalked up on a slate. "Even the coffee is good," Craig said. "Even everything," Constance said. She was wearing the blue linen dress because she knew he liked her in blue. "Happy you're here?" she asked. "Uh-huh." "With me?" "Well," he said slowly, as though he was considering the question very carefully, "I suppose if you have to be in a place like this with a girl, you're as good a choice as any." "Why, that's the nicest thing anybody has said to me all day," she said. They both laughed. "Spell Merag," he said. Jessecraig. They laughed again. She looked at the slate with the scores on it. "Isn't it wonderful that Monaco won?" she said. "It makes my week," he said. "We've both had too much to drink," she said, "wouldn't you say?" "I would say." He gestured to the proprietor behind the bar. "Deux cognac, s'il vous plaît." "Aside from everything else," she said, "it speaks French." "Among its many accomplishments," he said. "Tonight," she said, "you look 20 years old." "Next year," he said, "I'm going to vote." "For whom?" "Muhammad Ali." "I'll drink to that," she said. They drank to Muhammad Ali. "Whom are you going to vote for?" he asked. "Cassius Clay." "I'll drink to that," he said. They drank to Cassius Clay. She giggled. "Aren't we being foolish?" she said. "I'll drink to that," he said. He gestured toward the bar. "Encore deux cognac, s'il vous plaît." "Eloquent, eloquent," she said, "in several romantic languages." He stared across the table at her. Her face became grave, and she reached across to grasp his hand as if for reassurance. He was on the verge of saying, "Let's stay here all week, all month, and after that we'll take a year to cross the roads of France in the sunshine." But he didn't say anything, just gripped her hand a little more tightly. "Did I spell Merag correctly?" she said. "It's never been spelled better," he said. On the way up the hill, he said, "Walk in front of me for a while." "Why?" "I want to admire your glorious legs," he said. She walked ahead of him through the woods. "Admire," she said. The bed was huge. The moonlight came in through the open windows and the smell of the pine forest. He lay on his back in the silvery darkness, listening to Constance moving around in the bathroom. She never undressed in front of him. It was a good thing, he thought, that Gail was not one of those girls who raked a man with her nails in the act of love. He had been marked in his time. Then he was displeased with himself for thinking of it. The treachery of memory, eroding the body's pleasure. He was determined not to feel guilty. Tonight's choice was not last night's choice. Each night to its own innocence. He had never sworn fidelity to Constance, or she to him. Each night to its own innocence. He had never sworn fidelity to Constance, or she to him. She glided across the room, a pale shadow, slipped into the bed beside him. Her body was precious to him, generous and familiar. "Home again," he whispered to her, erasing other memories. But later on, lying still, side by side, she said, "You didn't really want me to come to Cannes." He hesitated. "No," he said. "It wasn't only because of your daughter." No. He had been marked, somehow. "There's somebody else there." "Yes." She was silent for a moment. "A serious somebody else, or an accidental somebody else?" "I would say accidental," he said, "but I'm not sure. Anyway, it happened accidentally. That is, I didn't go to Cannes to meet her. I didn't know she was alive until a few days ago." Now that she had broached the subject, he was relieved that he could talk about it. She was too dear to him for lying. "I don't really know how it happened," he said. "It just happened." "I didn't stay home alone in Paris every night since you were gone," she said. "I won't ask you what you mean by that," he said. "It means what it means." "Okay. We're not bound to each other," she said, "by anything else but what we feel for each other at any given moment." "All right. Do you mind if I smoke a cigarette?" "I always mind if anybody smokes a cigarette." "I promise not to come down with cancer tonight." She got out of bed, put on a robe, and went to the dresser. He saw the flare of the match. She came back to the bed and sat on its edge, her face from time to time lit by the glow of the cigarette tip when she inhaled. "I have some news for you tonight, too," she said. "I was going to save it for another time, but I'm in a chatty mood." He laughed. "What are you laughing at?" she asked. "Nothing," he said, "just laughing." "What's the news?" "I'm leaving Paris," she said. Unreasonably, he felt that this was a blow aimed at him. "Why?" "We're setting up a branch in San Francisco. There's been a big movement of the youth, back and forth, to and from the East. Exchange, scholarships, stuff like that. We've been negotiating with an organization in California for months. And it finally came through, and I'm elected. I'm going to be our private window on the awakening Orient. Paris won't be the same place without you." "I won't be the same lady without Paris," she said. "How do you feel about it?" "About living in San Francisco? Curious. It's a pretty city, and I hear it's seething with cultural aspiration." Her tone was mocking. "It'll probably be good for my kids, improve their English. A mother has to think about improving her children's English from time to time, doesn't she?" "I suppose so," he said. "When are you going to make the move?" "Sometime this summer, a month or two." "I have lost another home," he said. "I will wipe Paris off my itinerary." "That's loyal," she said. "Will you add San Francisco?" "They tell me there are some good restaurants." "So I hear," he said. "I'll be there from time to time." "From time to time," she said. "A girl can't ask for everything, can she?" He didn't answer her. "Foundations keep shifting," he said. Then much later she said, "I don't pretend I'm wildly pleased by what you told me tonight, but I'm no child, and neither are you. You didn't expect me to make a scene or throw myself out of the window or anything like that, did you?" "No, of course not." "As I said, I'm not wildly pleased," she said. "But I am wildly pleased about a lot of other things about us. Will you do me a favor?" "Of course." "Say I love you." "I love you," he said. She stubbed out the cigarette, took off the robe, dropping it onto the floor, and got into the bed beside him, her head on his chest. "And that's enough talk for tonight. I'm not in a chatty mood anymore." "I love you," he whispered into her tumbled hair. They slept late and woke to sunlight and birds singing. Constance called Marseille, but the money from St. Louis hadn't arrived yet for her youth, and the narcotics man would not be in until tomorrow. They decided to stay in Merag another day, and he didn't call Cannes to let anyone know where he was. The day was going to be only theirs. Then the next morning, the money still hadn't come, and it was too nice to leave, and they stayed another 24 hours. When he left her at the hotel in Marseille the next morning, He told her he would take her to lunch in Paris on Monday. It looked, she said, as if she had a good chance to spring the youth by nightfall. If she failed, she'd go back to Paris anyway and leave him to his fate. She had spent enough time in the South, she said. She was a working woman. Chapter 15. "Damn it, Jessie," Klein was saying loudly over the phone. "I tried to get you 10 times. Where are you now?" "Cassis," Craig said. He had stopped off for lunch on the way back from Marseille. He was calling from a restaurant on the harbor. The harbor was blue and toy-like. The season hadn't begun yet, and there was a sleepy, tranced look about it. The boats all closed up under their winter canvas, and everybody away for lunch. "Cassis," Klein said. "Just when you need people, they're in Cassis. Where the hell is Cassis?" "In between," Craig said. "What did you want to talk to me about?" "I think I have a deal for you. That's what I want to talk to you about. When can you get here?" 3-4 hours. "I'll be here," Klein said. "I won't move all afternoon." "Will you do me a favor?" Craig said. "What?" "Will you call Murphy for me and ask him to be at your place at 5 o'clock, too?" He could sense Klein's hesitation at the other end of the line, an intake of breath, an almost cough. "What do you want Murphy here for?" Klein asked. "I want to spare his feelings as much as possible," Craig said. "Well, that's a new one. A client wanting to spare an agent's feelings," Klein said. "I wish I had some like that." "I'm not sparing an agent's feelings," Craig said. "I'm sparing a friend's feelings." "Murphy's read the script, of course," Klein said. "Of course. And he said he didn't want to handle it?" "Yes." "Well," Klein said reluctantly, "if you insist." "I think it would be better all round," Craig said. "But if you don't want to do business with someone looking over your shoulder—" "Hell," Klein said. "I'll do business with the Pope looking over my shoulder. I'll call Murphy. That's a good fellow." "That's me," Klein said, "despite all rumors to the contrary." "I'll be there at 5, Craig said. He hung up. While it was a fact that he was asking for Murphy out of affection for his old friend, he also wanted him in on the beginning of the talks about the deal. He knew that he himself was a poor dealer for himself, loath to press for advantage, and Murphy had always protected him in all the contracts he had signed, and this contract promised to be a complicated one. It was true that he had written The Three Horizons for other reasons than the money he might eventually make out of it, but he had been around the movies long enough to know that the more money you were paid, the easier it was to get your way in other matters. While the old formula money versus art often held, he had found that in the movie business, in his case, the formula money multiplies art was likely to be the more valid one. Craig went out and sat at a table overlooking the harbor. He was the only customer. It was restful, being the only customer, looking out at the sunny little blue body of water, thinking of lunch and Klein not moving for an entire afternoon. He ordered a pasty in honor of the fishermen and vintners of Cassis, and leisurely examined the menu. He ordered a dorade and a bottle of white wine and sipped at his pasty. The licorice taste made the Mediterranean richer for him, brought back the memory of 100 lazy afternoons. The time with Constance had been good for him. He thought of her fondly. He knew that if he ever used the word in her presence, she would be enraged. No matter. It was a fair enough word. People were not fond enough of each other. They said they loved each other, but what they meant was that they wanted to use each other, patrol each other, dominate each other, devour each other, destroy each other, weep for each other. Constance and he enjoyed each other, at least most of the time, and fond was as good a word as any for that. He postponed thinking of San Francisco. He had said, "I love you" to Constance, and he had said, "I love you" to Gail McKinnon, and he had meant it both times, and perhaps he meant it simultaneously. In the sunlight, alone over a milky, cold southern drink, it seemed easily possible. He also did not deny to himself that it was pleasant to sit idly by the side of a deserted harbor and know that a man as involved in important affairs as Walter Klein had called him 10 times the day before, and was even now waiting impatiently for his arrival. He had thought that he had given all that up, but he realized now, with some satisfaction, that he was not immune to the joys of power. Well, he thought, with everything that has happened, it wasn't a bad idea coming down to Cannes after all. He hoped that when he arrived in Cannes that evening, he would discover that Gail McKinnon had left town. When he reached Klein's house just a little after 5, he saw a car with a chauffeur parked in the courtyard and knew that Murphy was already there. Murphy didn't like to drive himself. He had been in 3 accidents and had, as he put it, gotten the message. Murphy and Klein were sitting by the side of the heated swimming pool, Murphy drinking. The last time Craig had been there, the night of the party, it had been Sidney Green, the director who had been hailed by Cahiers de Cinéma, who couldn't get a job, who had come out of the bushes to greet him after pissing on the expensive green grass of Walter Klein. For losers only, Craig remembered thinking. Today he didn't feel like a winner, but he didn't feel like a loser either. "Hi, boys," Craig said as he came up to the side of the pool. "I hope I haven't kept you waiting." He sat down quickly so that they wouldn't have to decide whether or not to stand up to greet him. "I just got here," Murphy said, "a half-ounce of scotch ago." "I explained a little of the situation over the phone to Murph," Klein said. "Well," Murphy said gruffly, "if there's somebody damn fool enough to put up $1 million for that script on today's market, more power to him." "Where did you get that amount?" Craig asked. $1 million. "That's what I figure it'll cost to make," Murphy said. "Minimum." "I haven't discussed money yet with anyone," Klein said. "It's all according how you want to make it and with whom." "You told me a director had read it," Craig said to Klein. "Which director?" "Bruce Thomas," Klein said. He looked quickly from one to the other of the 2 men, enjoying his moment of triumph. "If Bruce Thomas wants to make it," Murphy said, "you can get all the money you need." He shook his head. "I would never have guessed Thomas. Why would he want to do something like this? He's never done anything like this before." "That's exactly why," Klein said. "That's what he told me. Now," Klein said to Craig, "Thomas agrees with me the script needs a lot of rewriting. What do you think, Murph?" "Yeah, a lot," Murphy said. "And Thomas would like to bring in another writer," Klein said, "to work on it alone, preferably, or if there's a hitch, to work with this fellow Hart. Just what sort of a deal do you have with Hart, Jesse?" Craig hesitated. "No deal," he said. Murphy made a startled noise. "What do you mean by no deal?" Klein asked. "Do you own the script or don't you?" "I own it all right," Craig said. "So?" Klein asked. "I wrote it," Craig said, "with my own little old fountain pen. There is no Malcolm Hart. I just picked a name at random and put it on the script." "What the hell did you do that for?" Murphy said angrily. "It's too complicated to go into now. Anyway, there we are," Craig said. "Let's move on from there." "Thomas is going to be surprised when he hears," Klein said. "If he likes the script with the name Malcolm Hart on it," Murphy said, "he's going to like it with the name Craig on it." "I suppose so," Klein said doubtfully, "but it's bound to change his thinking somewhat." "How?" Murphy asked. "I don't know how, but somehow," Klein said. "Where is Thomas?" Craig asked. "Why don't we call him up and have him come over?" "He had to leave for New York this morning," Klein said. "That's why I was calling you so frantically. God, I hate it when people drop out of sight." "You're lucky," Murphy said. "You only lost him for 1 day. I sometimes lose him for 3 months at a time." "Well," Klein said, "I might as well give you the whole thing. First, as I said, he wants another writer. Now hold your hats, boys. The man he wants is Ian Wadley." "Oh, shit," Murphy said. Craig laughed. "You laugh," Murphy said angrily. "Do you see yourself working with Ian Wadley?" "Maybe," Craig said. "Probably not." "What made Thomas pick on Wadley, of all people?" "I asked him that myself," Klein said. "He just happened to see Wadley around. You know how it is down here. He talked to the guy by accident once or twice, and Wadley gave him a copy of his last book. I guess he couldn't sleep one night, and he picked it up and looked through it, and something caught him." "Wadley's last book," Murphy snorted. "It got the worst reviews since Hiawatha." You know Thomas, Klein said. He doesn't read reviews, not even his own. The perfect reader, Craig murmured. What did you say? Klein asked. Nothing. Well, anyway, Klein said, Thomas thinks Wadley's just the man to bring out the feeling he's looking for in the script, whatever that means. Don't blame me, Jesse. I had nothing to do with it. It wouldn't occur to me in a million years to read a book by Ian Wadley. You know my position. My client wants him. I try to get him. How the hell was I to know that you're Malcolm Hart? I understand, Craig said. I don't blame you. The question is, what am I going to tell Thomas? Will you talk to Wadley at least? Let him read the script and see what his ideas are? Sure, Craig said. I have no objections to talking to him. While Klein had been talking, the idea of collaboration with Wadley had begun to seem attractive. The uncertainty that had made him put a nom de plume on the title page of the script had not been dispelled by Thomas's approval. The thought of sharing final responsibility was not unwelcome, and Wadley's talent, however tarnished, was a real one. Finally, he knew there almost never was a screenplay that was completely the work of one pair of hands. I don't promise anything, Craig said, but I'll talk to him. There's another thing, Klein said. Now he looked embarrassed. There's no sense in not putting it all on the table right from the beginning. You know, Thomas has produced his last 2 pictures himself. He doesn't need another producer, and if he wants to do this picture, Craig said crisply, he needs another producer, and that producer is me. Murph, Klein looked appealingly to Murphy. You heard what the man said, Murphy said. Okay, Klein said, there's nothing I can do about it, one way or another. I think the best thing we can all do is get on a plane to New York and talk it out with Thomas, and take Ian Wadley along with us and see if we can fit all the pieces together. Murphy shook his head. I'm due in Rome next week and London the week after that. Tell Thomas to wait. You know Thomas, Klein said. He won't wait. He's got another commitment starting in January, and everybody will have to work day and night to get this one in the can before then. One of the things he likes about your script, Jesse, is that it's easy to do and he can fit it in. Jess, Murphy said, you're really the one who has to do the talking. I can come in later. I don't know, Craig said. I'll have to think about it. I'm going to call Thomas tonight, Klein said. What should I tell him? Tell him I'm thinking about it, Craig said. He'll love that, Klein said sourly. He stood up. Anybody want a drink? No, thanks. Craig stood up, too. I have to get back to Cannes. I appreciate what you've done so far, Walt. Just out to turn an honest dollar from me and my friends, Klein said. I don't know why the fuck you didn't use your own name. I'll tell you someday, Craig said. Murph, why don't you drive with me to Cannes? Tell your chauffeur to pick you up at the Carlton. Yeah. Murphy looked strangely subdued. Klein walked out with them to the courtyard. They all shook hands ceremonially, and then there was the ringing of the telephone from inside the house, and Klein hurried in as Craig and Murphy drove off, the chauffeur following in Murphy's Mercedes. Murphy was silent for a long time, staring out at the wild green countryside, the trees throwing long shadows in the evening light. Craig didn't speak either. He knew that Murphy was troubled, and was preparing himself for the conversation that had to take place. Jess, Murphy said finally, his voice low, I want to apologize. There's nothing to apologize for. I'm a horse's ass, Murphy said. An old horse's ass. Cut that, Craig said. I've lost my touch. I'm just no good anymore. Oh, come on, Murph. Everybody makes mistakes. I could tell you about some of mine. He thought of Edward Brenner in the empty theater on the night after the final performance of Brenner's last and best play. Murphy shook his head sadly. I had that script in my hand, and I told you to forget it. And that little punk Klein got you the hottest director in the business for it with one telephone call. What the hell do you need me for? I need you, Craig said. Is that clear enough? I should have told you I wrote it myself. That makes no difference, Murphy said. Even though it was a crappy thing to do to me, after all these years. I have my own problems, Craig said. You know some of them. Yeah, Murphy said. There's one big problem I could have helped you with, should have helped you with, a long time ago, and I didn't. What's that? Your goddamn wife. What could you have done? I could have warned you. I knew what was happening. So did I, Craig said, in general, and late in the game, but I knew. Did you ever figure out why she did it? Murphy asked. I mean, she wasn't an nymphomaniac or anything like that. It wasn't as though she couldn't control herself. She isn't one of those women who throw themselves in bed with the boy who delivers the groceries, for Christ's sake. No, she isn't. Has it ever occurred to you how she made her choices? Not really. If this is painful to you, Jess, I'll shut up. It's painful, Craig said, and don't shut up. She always picked your friends, Murphy said. People who admired you, people you worked with, people you admired. I can't say that I'm wild with admiration for her last choice, Craig said. Even him, Murphy insisted. He's a successful man, successful at something that you're lousy at, that you're ashamed you're lousy at. You went to him for advice. You trusted him with your money. Do you see what I mean? In a way, Craig said, yes. And all these people always wanted to see you, listen to you. You were the center of attraction. She was always in the background. There was one way she could stop being in the background, and she took it. And she took it, Craig nodded. I saw it a long time ago, Murphy said. So did Sonia. And while there was still time to do something about it, I kept my mouth shut. I left you with your problem. And how do I make up for it? He shook his head mournfully again. I become another one of your problems. He looked tired, somehow diminished, sitting in the small car, his bulk slack in the flimsy bucket seat, his voice weary, his face sorrowful in the moving shadows from the trees that lined the road. You're not a problem, Craig said sharply. You're my friend and my partner, and you've done wonders for me in the past. And I expect you to do wonders for me in the future. I wouldn't know what to do without you. Being an agent is a joke, Murphy said. I'm a 60-year-old joke. Nobody thinks you're a joke, Craig said. Not me, and certainly not anyone who has to do business with you. Snap out of it. He hated to see Murphy, whose style, whose reason for living even, was to be robust, assured, overriding, in a mood like this. If you want, Jess, Murphy said, I'll cancel Rome and London and fly to New York with you. Unnecessary, Craig said. You'll come on stronger when they know they have to wait for you. Don't make any concessions before I get there. Murphy's voice was stronger now. Don't give a fucking inch. Let me think about it overnight, and tomorrow you tell me exactly what you want, and we'll figure out just how much of it you can get and how you can get it. That's more like it, Craig said. That's why I told Klein to ask you to be there when I saw him. Christ, Murphy said loudly, how I hate to have to split a commission with that little punk. Craig laughed. Then Murphy laughed too, sitting up straighter in the bucket seat, his laughter resounding in the little car. But when they reached the Carlton, he said, Jess, do you have an extra copy of the script? I'd like to read it again, just to see how stupid I can be. I'll have it for you tomorrow, Craig said. Give my love to Sonia. When Murphy got out of the Simca and walked over to his own car, he was striding imperiously, huge and dangerous, a terrible man to cross. Craig couldn't help grinning as he saw his friend hurl himself into the big black Mercedes. The lobby of the hotel was crowded. There were already people in dinner jackets and evening gowns, dressed for the showing in the festival hall that night. Automatically, as he made his way to the concierge's desk, Craig looked around the lobby to see if Gale was there. There were many familiar faces, Joe Reynolds among them, but no Gale. Reynolds' bruises had turned a streaky yellow. It didn't help his looks. He was talking earnestly to Elliot Steinhardt. A large young man with a blond beard was standing near the elevator, and Craig felt him staring at him. While Craig was collecting his mail and his key, the young man with the beard came up to him. "Mr. Craig," he said. "Yes." "I'm Bayard Patty," the young man said. Yes? I mean, I'm Anne's friend from California. Oh, how do you do? Craig extended his hand, and Patty shook it. He had an enormous, crushing hand. I'm very pleased to meet you, sir, Patty said. He sounded mournful. Where is Anne? Craig said. Let's get her and have a drink. That's what I've been waiting to talk to you about, Mr. Craig, Patty said. Anne's not here. She's gone away. What do you mean she's gone away? Craig said sharply. She's gone away, that's all, Patty said. This morning. She left me a note. Craig turned back to the concierge. Has my daughter checked out? He asked. Yes, monsieur, the concierge said. This morning. Craig looked through his mail and messages. There was nothing there from Anne. Did she leave a forwarding address? He asked the concierge. No, monsieur. Patty, Craig said, did she tell you where she was going? No, sir, Patty said, and please call me Bayard. She just vanished. Wait here for me, Bayard, Craig said. Maybe there's a note from her in my room. But there was nothing from Anne in his apartment. He went downstairs again. Patty was waiting near the desk like a huge, faithful, shaggy Newfoundland. Was there anything? Patty asked. Craig shook his head. She's a peculiar girl, Patty said. I just got here yesterday. I flew over the pole. I think we could both use a drink, Craig said. He felt very small walking beside the enormous young man along the corridor toward the bar. Patty was dressed in blue jeans and skivvy shirt and a light brown windbreaker. He limped a little, too, which made him even more conspicuous among the dinner jackets and jewelry. I see you're still limping, Craig said. Oh, you know about that. Patty sounded surprised. Anne told me about it. What else did she tell you about me? There was a childish bitterness in the way Patty asked the question that was incongruous in a man his size. Nothing much else, Craig said diplomatically. He was certainly not going to repeat Anne's judgment on the bearded boy from San Bernardino. Did she tell you I wanted to marry her? I believe she did. You don't think there's anything so all-out horrible or depraved about a man wanting to marry the girl he loves, do you? No. It cost me a fortune to fly over the pole, Patty said. I see her for a few hours. She wouldn't even let me stay in the same hotel. And then bang, there's a note saying she's leaving and goodbye. Do you think she'll be coming back here? I have no idea. All the tables were full, and they had to stand at the crowded bar. More familiar faces. I tell you, a young man was saying, the British film industry has signed its death warrant. Maybe I should have put on a suit, Patty said, looking around uneasily. I own a suit. In a fancy place like this? Not necessary, Craig said. Nobody notices how anybody dresses anymore. For 2 weeks here, you have a really open society. You can say that again, Patty said sourly. He ordered a martini. That's one good thing about my leg, he said. I can drink martinis. What's that? I mean, I don't have to worry about keeping in shape and all that crap. I tell you something, Mr. Craig, when I heard my knee go, I was relieved. Mightily relieved. You want to know why I was relieved? If you want to tell me. Craig sipped his whiskey and watched Patty knock off half his martini in one gulp. I knew I didn't have to play football anymore. It's a game for beasts, and being my size, I didn't have the guts to quit. And another thing, when I heard it snap, I thought, there goes Vietnam. Do you think that's unpatriotic? Not really, Craig said. When I got out of the hospital, Patty went on, wiping the martini-damp beard with the back of his hand, I decided I could finally ask Anne to marry me. There was nothing hanging over us anymore. Only her, he added bitterly. What the hell has she got against San Bernardino, Mr. Craig? Did she ever say? Not that I remember, Craig said. She's given me proof that she loves me, Patty said belligerently. The most convincing proof a girl can give. As recently as yesterday afternoon. Yes, she mentioned something about that, Craig said, although the yesterday afternoon surprised him, unpleasantly. Most convincing proof. What proof had he given yesterday afternoon in my rag? The boy's vocabulary had not yet emerged from the Victorian era. It was somehow touching. Anne had not been circumspect in her choice of words when she had spoken on the subject. "I've got to go back to San Bernardino," Patty said. "I'm the only son. I've got 4 sisters, younger sisters. My father worked for a lifetime to build up his business. He's one of the most respected men in the town. What am I supposed to say to my father? You did it all for nothing?" "I find your attitude refreshing," Craig said. "Anne doesn't," Patty said dolefully. He finished his drink, and Craig motioned for 2 more. He wondered how he was going to get rid of the boy. If music was the food of love, Patty was a high school band playing the school anthem between halves of a football game. He couldn't help grinning slightly at the thought. "You think I'm foolish, don't you, Mr. Craig?" Patty asked. He had noticed the twitch of Craig's lips. "Not at all, Bayard," Craig said. "It's just that you and Anne seem to have 2 different sets of values. Do you think she'll change?" "Everybody changes," Craig said, "but I don't know if she'll change in your direction." "Yeah." Patty hung his head, his beard down on his chest. "I don't like to say this to any girl's father," he said, "but the truth is, I'm a shy man, and I don't make advances to anybody. Your daughter led me on." "That's quite possible," Craig said. "You're a handsome young man, and as far as I can tell, a very nice one." "Yeah," Patty said without conviction. To cheer him, Craig said, "She even told me that when you walked on the beach, you looked as though you belonged on a marble pedestal in Thrace." "What does that mean?" Patty asked suspiciously. "It's very flattering." Craig handed him his second martini. "It doesn't sound so damned flattering to me," Patty said, taking a gulp from his drink. "Actions speak louder than words, I always say, and your daughter's actions are mystifying, to say the least. And what the hell? I know how she's been brought up." "How do you think she's been brought up, Bayard?" Craig honestly wanted to know. "Fancy school in Lausanne, speaking French, famous father, all the money in the world, talking to high-flying people all her life. I must look like a big Mr. Nobody to her. I suppose I ought to have more sense. Only when I think about her, I don't have any sense at all. You must have some idea, Mr. Craig. Do you think she'll come back here or not?" "I really don't know," Craig said. "I have to be back in California in a week," Patty said. "They're operating on my knee again. They promise me I'll be able to walk okay in 3 months. So it's not as though she'd be marrying a cripple or anything like that. 1 year ago, if anybody'd told me that me, Bayard Patty, would fly 6,000 miles across the pole to come to France to see a girl for 1 week, I'd have told them they were crazy. I tell you, Mr. Craig, I don't think I can live without her." There were tears in the bright, clear blue eyes. "I sound dramatic, don't I?" he said, pushing an enormous hand at his eyelids. "A little." "I mean every word I say," Patty said. "She's got to get in touch with you, doesn't she?" "Eventually." "Will you tell her that she's got to phone me?" "I'll pass on the word." "What do you think of me, Mr. Craig? Honestly. You've lived through a lot. You've seen people come and go. Am I so bad?" "I'm sure not. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm not the dumbest either. It's not as though I'd be dragging her down. I'd respect her tastes. I'd be happy to respect her tastes. You've been married, Mr. Craig. You know, it isn't as though marriage has to be a prison, for God's sake. That's what she said, Anne. Prison. I'm afraid my marriage hasn't given my daughters a very encouraging example," Craig said. "I know you're separated," Patty said, "and I know you and your wife aren't on very good terms." "That's one way of putting it," Craig said. "But that doesn't mean every marriage has to break up," Patty said doggedly. "Hell, my father and mother have had some pretty rough times. Still have. You should hear some of the arguments around my house. But that hasn't scared me off. Even having 4 sisters hasn't scared me off. You're a brave man, Bayard." "I'm not in the mood for jokes, sir," Patty said. "I wasn't really joking," Craig said soothingly. It occurred to him that if Patty ever got angry, he'd be a ferocious man to deal with. Anyway, Patty said, partially placated, if you'd put in a good word for me with Anne when you hear from her, I'd deeply appreciate it. I'll put in a word, Craig said. Whether it will be good or not, only time will tell. It helps me to talk to you, Mr. Craig, Patty said. It's, a kind of connection with Anne. I don't like to impose, but I'd be honored if you'd allow me to take you to dinner tonight. Thank you, Bayard, Craig said. He felt he had to repay some devious family debt. That'd be very nice. There was a tap on his shoulder. He turned. Gail was standing there in the same print dress she had worn at Klein's party. They stared at each other for a moment in silence. Buy me a drink, she said. Do you know Bayard Patty? Craig said. Gail McKin. Yes, we've met, Gail said. The man who was sitting next to Craig got up from his stool, and Gail swung up and sat down, putting her bag on the bar. Good evening, Miss McKinnon, Patty said. Anne introduced us, he explained to Craig. I see. Craig wished that Patty would disappear. What are you drinking? He asked Gail. Champagne, please, she said. She looked fresh, demure, as though she had never drunk a glass of champagne in her life, or was ever capable of asking a man if she was as good a lay as her mother. Craig ordered the champagne. Bayard tells me that Anne left this morning. Do you happen to know anything about it? Gail looked at him queerly. She didn't speak for a moment, but shifted her bag on the bar. No, she said finally, nothing. Did you have a good time in Marseille? How did you know I was in Marseille? All movements are charted, she said. Walt Klein was spastic because he couldn't reach you. It's a charming town, Marseille. I recommend it to you, Craig said. Yes, I had a good time. Gail sipped at her champagne. Are you staying on here in Cannes, Mr. Patty? Call me Bayard, please. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of anything. We're having dinner together, Bayard and I, Craig said. Would you like to join us? Sorry, she said. I'm waiting for Larry Hennessy. They're showing his picture tonight, and he's too nervous to sit through it. I promised I'd have dinner with him and hold his hand. Some other night, perhaps. Her tone was flat, deliberately provocative. Perhaps, Craig said. There's going to be a party in his rooms after the showing, Gail said. I'm sure he'd be delighted if you two gentlemen came along. We'll see how we feel, Craig said. I'm doing a piece on him, Gail said. The other piece I was doing seems to have fallen through. He's a sweet man, and wonderfully cooperative. She sipped her champagne. With other people, it's so uphill. Ah, there he is. She waved toward the door. Oh, dear, he's being waylaid by boors. I'd better go and rescue him. Thanks for the wine. She slipped off her stool and strode toward the door, where Hennessy was talking volubly to two women, and not seeming bored at all. I don't like to say this, Mr. Craig, Patty said, and I only met her yesterday, but I have the feeling that girl isn't a good influence on Anne. They hardly know each other, Craig said shortly. Look, I have to go up and shower and change. I'll meet you in the lobby in half an hour. Do you think I ought to put on my suit for dinner? Patty asked. Yes, Craig said. Let him suffer, too, that evening, with a tie around that bull neck. Craig paid for all the drinks and went out through the terrace entrance so that he wouldn't have to pass the door where Hennessy stood talking jovially, his arm around Gail McKinnon's shoulders. It was almost an hour later that he went down to the lobby. Before starting to get dressed, he had picked up a copy of The Three Horizons and had glanced through it. Knowing that other people had read it, had liked it well enough to start the whole intricate and exhausting process of bringing it to life on the screen, made him review his work with fresh eyes. Despite himself, he felt the old excitement run through him as he read the pages. They were not dead to him anymore. Ideas for casting, for changes in the writing, for using the camera, for the kind of music, for specific scenes, flooded through his mind. He had to wrench himself away from the script to shave and take his shower and dress. He couldn't leave poor Bayard Patty standing in the lobby all night, bereft and pitiful in his suit, waiting for him. He was annoyed with Anne's behavior, but not much more than that. He wasn't really worried about her. She was a grown girl and could take care of herself. She had been cruel to Patty, and not being cruel himself, he disapproved. When he saw her, he would make that clear. Going to bed with the boy and then disappearing the next morning was a monstrous thing to do. But she was not the first girl to waver, then run away from a problem, nor the first man either, nor the first member of the Craig family, if it came to that. He called Klein and got Bruce Thomas's address in New York. Pleased with his own impatience, he told Klein that he would take the plane the next day. "That's what I like to hear," Klein said. "Get the wheels moving. This festival has run out of gas anyway. You're not missing anything." There was the babble of many voices over the telephone. Klein was giving a cocktail party. He was getting his money's worth out of his $5,000 a month rent. Craig felt benevolent and unwontedly friendly toward the man. The world was full of useful people, and Klein was one of them. He would have to get Murphy to stop calling him that little punk. He wrote out a cable to Thomas telling him he was arriving in New York and would call as soon as he landed. He thought of sending a telegram to Constance, canceling their lunch date on Monday, then decided against it. He would call her in the morning and explain. He knew she'd understand and approve, and New York was closer to San Francisco. In the lobby, with Bayard Patty standing next to him in a dark blue suit and necktie, he gave the cable to Bruce Thomas, to the concierge, and asked him to reserve a seat on a plane the next day from Nice to New York. Patty looked forlorn as he listened to Craig's conversation with the concierge. "You're leaving so soon?" he said. "What if Anne comes back?" "You'll have to take care of her," Craig said. "Yeah," Patty said without conviction. They got into the car, and Craig drove to Golfe Juan, where they ate in a seafood restaurant built right on the beach. The sea was rough and growled at the pilings on which the restaurant was built. Patty drank more wine than was good for him, and was garrulous. By the end of the meal, Craig knew all about his family, his politics, his ideas of love and student revolt. "I'm not a typical jock, Mr. Craig, I'll tell you that. Most of the things the kids are complaining about, they're right. But I don't go along with taking over buildings and bombing banks and crazy stuff like that. At least that's one thing Anne and I agree about. My father thinks I'm a wild-eyed red, but I'm not. And there's one thing about my father. You can stand up to him like a man and he listens to you and tries to see your point of view. When you get out to California, you've got to meet him. I'll tell you something, Mr. Craig. I'm a lucky man to have a father like that." At no point did he say that Anne was a lucky girl to have a father like Craig. He had seen 2 of Craig's movies and was polite about them. He was a polite young man. By the end of the meal, Craig was certain that, politics or no politics, it would be disastrous for Bayard Patty if his daughter married him, but he didn't think he had to tell the boy that.